Good morning. My name is Yong Liang, and I'm a researcher from the Institute for Adult Learning in Singapore. So I'm happy to be here today to share with you my findings on the topic of training as well as learning. Yeah. So just a quick overview. We have kept our research question very simple. What are the key determinants of job-related training as well as informal learning in the workplace? And for the data, of course, we use PIAAC Cycle 2 data, and we have restricted the analysis to only employees aged 25 and above. As for the countries, we have identified 6 countries for comparison based on their economic models. So firstly, we have Finland, and then UK, USA, Korea, Japan, and Singapore. Okay. But first, I would like to talk about the training and learning-related measures in PIAAC Cycle 1 and 2. So this table here shows you the questions that are related to training and learning. And as you can see, there's been some changes between the cycles, especially for Cycle 1 training participation question. The 5 questions over there here has been compressed into just 1 question in Cycle 2. Okay. Additionally, according to OECD, there has been a decline in the job-related training in Singapore as well as 12 other countries across the cycles. However, trend data from Singapore's Ministry of Manpower actually did not find any kind of decline over the same decade. This is also supported by IAL's skills and learning studies that also find that job-related training actually remained relatively stable from 2017 to 2021. And so we kind of suspected that the decline in the job-related training that is reported by OECD could have been caused by the change in the question. And that is why we actually caution against comparison between cycles for any training-related variable. And that is also why in this analysis, we are only focusing on Cycle 2. Okay, so for literature review, many literature has actually shown that education is the key predictor of training and learning. In fact, there is the Matthew effect, which is a sociological theory that states that if an individual has an initial advantage, in this case, a higher level in education, it may lead to more opportunities for further training and development, and further leading to more cumulative advantages. So the literature that I've listed, the literature that I've listed here have shown that education is one of the key determinants in Singapore as well as other OECD countries. But our research, or rather our results from this analysis have actually shown that perhaps it is not education that is the key predictor of training and learning. Okay, so let's take a look at the job-related training participation rates across the countries first. For the countries in the developmental state, which is Korea, Japan, and Singapore, you actually see a much lower job-related training rate as compared to those in the social trust model as well as the market liberalism model. Interestingly to note is that Korea actually has a very, very low job-related training participation rate of 11.5%, and this could have actually affected the results as we will see later. Okay, so for the determinants of the job-related training, for our model, we have actually grouped the variables of interest into 4 different categories. So for the individual variables, the job variables, the organizational context variables, as well as the control variables. The main reason why we are grouping them into the categories is basically because there's simply too many of the variables, and we thought that it would be easier to have a comparison between the countries if we group them into the categories. Another point to note is that not all the models are the same. Because of data suppression, working hours is actually not included in UK and Japan, and both working hours and work arrangement are not included in USA. Okay, let me just go through with you some of the variables that we have used that may not be very obvious what they mean. First of all, we have the societal pressure. This is the variable that is made up of the parents' education level, as well as the number of books at home at a young age. This represents the expectations on the individual to do well. Next, we have social trust. This refers to how trusting the respondent is in dealing with other people. We also have training intention, which refers to whether the individual intended to go for any particular training activity, but in the end chose not to in the last 12 months. For the skills used at home and at work, we are actually using the 5 levels that are sorted according to the percentiles. Working hours is quite straightforward. Work arrangement is the contract type of the respondent, split into permanent contract, fixed-term contract, and others. For firm size, this is also quite straightforward. Lastly, for workplace change, this represents any kind of workplace environmental change, such as changes in machinery, ICT systems, working methods and practices, etc. Do take note that this workplace change only measures if any of the workplace change is present, and it does not actually differ, or rather it doesn't differentiate between the types of the workplace change. Okay. So what we did for the analysis is that we had 5 different models. First, we started off with the controls, and then we paired the controls with the different, with each of the different groups of variables. And what we find is that for job variables, it actually increased the pseudo R-square by a larger amount for 5 out of the 6 countries, whereas for Singapore, the addition of that last variable, which is the workplace change variable, has actually caused the organizational context to be the one that is increasing the pseudo R-square the most. Okay. And then this is this table shows you the variables that are significant for each of the models. Just a quick explanation, the red represents a negative correlation, the green is more of a positive correlation. The values represent the effect sizes. And okay, you may notice that there are ranges in some of the variables. Okay, so the range is there because some of these variables are categorical variables. So the values here represent the effect sizes at different levels. Okay, so the first thing that we can see is that for education, actually there's actually no, or rather there's a very minimal effect of education on job-related training, and it only shows up as partially significant for USA. And on the other hand, we see that for skills used at work, a whole bunch of them are scattered around the model. But what is interesting is that for career, both the education as well as the skills used at work does not actually show up as significant. So what we actually think may be happening is that because of the low participation rate, it has actually reduced the statistical power and it made it harder to tease out any significance. Okay. Another thing of interest to note is that this addition of workplace change for the Singapore model has actually absorbed some of the significance from the skills used at work. And what we kind of think is a possibility is that because the data collection happened during, or rather right after the outbreak of COVID-19, and because of that, Singapore has the lockdown measures, and employees were all forced to work from home. And because they were all forced to work from home, they were forced to learn how to work from home effectively. So things like learning how to use tools such as Zoom for meetings and for maybe their lessons for teachers, and also to learn how to use tools for collaborating with one another effectively. Yeah, and so that's why we think that the workplace change is one of the most significant factors for Singapore. Okay. For informal learning at work, actually the model is largely the same. We have just replaced the job-related training with the informal learning at work. Okay, we did the same thing, and we actually find that job content variables, they explain the largest portion of the variance across the other, as compared to the other variable groups. Okay, so now here is the results of the informal learning at work. You actually see that there's a whole bunch of skills used at work that shows up as significant. And then we have reading skills at work, influence skills at work, simple problem-solving skills, and then we also have complex problem-solving skills at work, which actually shows up as significant for all the countries. And that is why we think that task complexity may actually play a bigger role in informal learning at the workplace across all countries. Okay. So if you were to take a look at the graph on the left, we see a large increase in the informal learning for those with a higher complex problem-solving skill use at work. But what is slightly unexpected is that we actually find a negative correlation for age and informal learning at the workplace. So we actually see a lower informal learning at the start, and then it spikes before it drops down. So what we think is happening is that at the very beginning, when you're 25 to 29, you're more likely at the entry-level jobs, and so you are given the easier tasks that do not actually require much skills outside of what you have actually learned in your formal education. And as you progress in your career, you are being given more tasks and more collaborative work, and that's why you see this increase in the informal learning at work. And as you progress even further into your career, what we think is happening is that because they accumulate more and more skills, they are now the mentor and the teachers of the younger employees, and that's why their informal learning has actually dropped, because the roles have now been reversed. Okay. For summary, this is a table that shows you all the variables that show up as significant for both the job-related training as well as the informal learning for all the countries. What I want to bring our attention is that when we remove this whole skills use at work in the model, we actually do find that education is significant. And what that means is, if we were to include this skills use at work, this material effect actually disappears or it diminishes. Okay, so for implications on our policy and practice, what can we do to improve training as well as learning at the workplace? First thing is to redesign our jobs to maximize our skills use, as well as provide greater autonomy over the work methods as well as decision making to support the kind of experimentation and adaptation whenever new technologies or processes are introduced. On the other hand, you can also have support for companies in implementing the structured programs to adopt new machinery, ICT systems, etc., and this will foster a culture that values continuous improvement as well as the responsiveness to market dynamics. Yeah. And with that, actually, we have come to the end of the presentation. Thank you. Yes.
How do you use that? Do you put the skill use to 0, or do you?
No, we actually excluded them from the analysis. We are only using limiting the analysis to only the employees aged 25 and above. Yeah. So we actually excluded those who are unemployed.